My name is Jerry Firestein. I am the director of the new Center for Gulf Affairs here at the Middle East Institute. And again, I'd like to welcome you all here today. It's my pleasure at this time to introduce the moderator for our first panel on the geopolitics surrounding the Yemen conflict. Ms. Ann Guerin is one of the most recognizable and respected reporters on politics and national security in Washington. You have her bio in your program books. You've seen her on PBS Washington Week and on other news analysis shows. And you see her in our hometown newspaper, expertly covering election campaigns, and then for a little comic relief, doing the politics of national security policy making. You may have seen her byline in this morning's Washington Post, writing about Secretary Tillerson's first weeks in office. She's also reported on Yemen and other major hotspots across the Middle East during her distinguished career with the Associated Press. So we're delighted to have Ann leading the conversation today. And I will turn it over to her, and she'll introduce the individual panelists. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jerry. I always think distinguished career is a euphemism for a long career, meaning the person is old, all true. But I'm delighted to be here, and I really felt very honored to hear the Special Representative's presentation, and I thought he was generous with his time and his insights, and I hope, although he's no longer here, that you'll feel free to ask questions of our panelists that were brought to mind by his presentation. I plan to. I will introduce the panelists in the order of that they will speak to you, and then we'll do a few questions. I'll probably ask one or two of the panelists and open it for what I'm sure will be far better and better informed questions from you. We'll do the same thing when we get to that point of someone will walk around and hand you all a microphone. So with that, I am pleased to introduce someone who probably needs no introduction to you all, Ambassador Ann Patterson, who's a recently retired career Foreign Service Officer and a very experienced diplomat in the Middle East and elsewhere. I think I first met you when you were ambassador to Pakistan, and which was one of only several of your difficult postings. But Ambassador Patterson was the chief U.S. diplomat in charge of the Middle East at the State Department during the last period of the Obama administration, and thus was there for a critical period in U.S. decision-making regarding the level of U.S. involvement and backing for the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. So I hope she'll be able to talk a bit about what that experience was like, what the U.S. decision-making was based on, and from her perspective now, how well she thinks some of the decisions made then are playing out. I hope that isn't putting too much pressure on you. And next we have Mr. Ambassador, who introduced himself to the group earlier, but His Excellency Ahmed bin Mubarak is the U.S. Ambassador to Yemen and is speaking here as a representative of the Houthi government. Did I say it wrong? Did I say it backwards? Oh, my apologies. Well, see, I need fact checkers and copy editors and everybody. Everybody needs an editor. I need many of them. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking here as representative of the Houthi government, I think he will tell us what he believes can be done to end the war. And what the U.S. involvement is doing or not doing toward that end. And I think I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts in response to the UN Special Representative about the dissolution or at least the pause in the peace process. And Mr. Mohammed Abahum is the founder of the Justice and Building Party in Yemen, and a very experienced politician, member of civil society in Yemen going back a couple of decades. The party he helped to found was the first independent political party formed after the 2011 Arab Spring uprising, which is, I think, an important distinction given some of Yemen's fractured politics before and afterward. And I'd be interested to hear a little bit about where you see the political process going now and surrounding the peace process. And also, I think it will be interesting to hear where you think the Houthi government may have gone off course. I believe you were initially supportive of many of their efforts, and now less so. So with that, I will turn the microphone over to Ambassador Patterson.
Thank you very much, Ann. And let me thank UMI and Ambassador Chamberlain for organizing this event. And I too want to add my voice to congratulate the special envoy who has put his heart and soul into this effort over many months. And I don't think anyone on the planet could have done a better job under these circumstances. So I know he's no longer here, but his performance was absolutely a real one. I've been asked to make some comments on the regional context of this two-year war. And let me start by saying that Yemen is no stranger to violence. The Houthis had fought 6 wars against the presidency of Ali Abdullah Saleh since 2004. But this one was fundamentally different in the level of intensity of involvement by outside players, outside powers, and the role of the international community. And I do want to discuss, as the conflict persisted, direct U.S. interests became increasingly at risk. Those of us working, I think, on the Middle East in the past few years began to see Sunni Shia tensions as the issue in the region. They may be subsiding now for reasons we can discuss, and this is an immensely sophisticated audience, so we want to have a dialogue about next steps. But certainly in 2015, the vicious civil war in Syria, in which Hezbollah and Iran were attacking, helped Bashar al-Assad attack a primarily Sunni population, the unrest in Bahrain, the steady evolution of Hezbollah from a ragtag guerrilla group to a canny and prominent political party, and then the Iran nuclear agreement, which our allies in the Gulf incorrectly saw as a zero-sum game, all contributed to the perception that the Shia and Iran were encroaching on traditional Sunni territory. This was all taking place when the Houthis and President Saleh took over Yemen by force and drove out the legitimately elected government. This brought to a halt hopes that had been raised by the PCC initiative and the national dialogue that a true political process would get underway, and that importantly, in my view, a system of autonomous government would be imposed on large parts of the country. It is also important to remember as we discuss this that the international community, through the Security Council in Resolution 2216, put in place an arms embargo and sanctions against the Houthis and was a ringing endorsement of the legitimately elected government. Sunni Shia tensions were nothing new, as many of us know who worked on this area, but the Gulf Arabs, I think, had always believed that the U.S. had their back. One of the examples we always use is the reflagging of Kuwaiti tankers in 1987. And Jerry Firestein once put it, keeping Iran off the Arabian Peninsula for the Saudis was like the Monroe Doctrine for the United States. So when the Houthis and Ali Abdullah Saleh took over Sana'a and ejected the government, the Gulf countries saw it as a direct threat to their sovereignty. I want to go to Amal's question. Within the U.S. government during the first few months of the war, there was a lot of debate about the extent of Iranian involvement with the Houthis. As I said, these uprisings were nothing new. There were anecdotal reports that the Houthis had Iranian security personnel inside, or for instance, But the general consensus was what Ismail said, that there was not a large Iranian support for the Houthis, and if there were, it wasn't militarily significant. And there were multiple reasons that the Houthis were not going to be an Iranian proxy. But over time, there's simply no question that this changed. And in my view, it was designed to be sort of in your face to both the Gulf Arabs and the international community. The Iranians have absolutely no strategic interest in Yemen, but for them the war proved valuable and timed Saudi Arabia and the members of the coalition down into a costly stalemate with no obvious exit. There was also little question that the Saudi government was shown to be ill-equipped to handle an extended military campaign. Despite the efforts of Secretary Kerry, the Special Envoy, and others in the international community to broker a ceasefire and participate in months of negotiations supported tirelessly by the government of Kuwait, the situation remains stalemated today and in desperate need of resumed negotiations. For the U.S., the strategic implications of this conflict are significant. First, there's the critically important issue of freedom of navigation in the region, for which, for want of a better word, the U.S. has been historically responsible. The most obvious choke point was the Bab al-Mandab at the mouth of the Red Sea. Not only do 19,000 ships a year transit the strait, but it is the gateway to the Suez Canal, Egypt's main source of foreign exchange, into the Mediterranean pipeline. The Houthis unwisely tried to attack a U.S. ship last October and attacked Saudi and UAE ships more recently, which has made this threat crystal clear. The Bab al-Mandab and the Straits of Hormuz control or account for about 60% of the world's oil transit. The U.S. is deeply involved elsewhere in the Middle East and isn't eager to more aggressively monitor shipping lanes, much less engaged in costly activities such as escorting shipping. The second strategic issue, I think, for the U.S. was the persistence of attacks by the Houthis against the Saudi border, the territory of a long-standing strategic U.S. ally. The Saudi government has been forced to evacuate portions of two sizable Saudi cities on the border, Jizan and Najran, and now plays a cat-and-mouse game with the Houthis on the border. In recent months, the Houthis, apparently with outside help, have also shown an ability to shoot longer-range missiles well into Saudi Arabia, and the almost certain likelihood of an expanded conflict if any of these missiles should hit a major Saudi city. The third issue for the United States, and Jerry talked about this in his testimony last week, has been the erosion of the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia and Britain, two of its longest allies. I would add this to the breakdown of the relationship between Saudi Arabia and much of the UN system. Of course, there have been debates about American arms sales to Saudi Arabia going back many years, but these became more intense and more focused as criticism of airstrikes hitting civilians mounted. The United States throughout urged the Saudis to investigate, explain, and redress these strikes, but admittedly not with much success for cultural reasons, among other issues that we can discuss. Increasingly and unfortunately, in my view, these airstrikes and the humanitarian disaster in Yemen led to questions in the U.S. about the usefulness of the long-standing relationship with Saudi Arabia. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly for the United States and for all our neighbors, the war has complicated our shared fight against Al-Qaeda, which has a long history of plotting against the United States from Yemen. There have been considerable progress against Al-Qaeda in the past few years, but it has stalled out recently as our joint ability to fight terrorists has been eroded because of the civil war. For all these reasons, and again, I think the Special Envoy was correct in his somewhat negative perspective on this situation. Secretary Kerry, the Special Envoy, many other people in this room, personally engaged in efforts to both get a peace process going and to put a ceasefire in place for many months. I think we might discuss in more detail, given the Special Envoy's comments with this group, the likelihood of an attack on the port of Hodeidah and what the implications of that might be for the humanitarian situation and for the peace process. And others on this panel can discuss the details of the negotiations. So, thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allow me at the beginning to express my appreciation to the Middle East Institute for organizing this event and for the excellent arrangements. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you very much, Dr. Mehdi. I'm very delighted and honored to be among this great panel. I'm delighted to see again Honorable and Patterson, who worked together during the last 2 years in many occasions. Also my colleagues Mohammed Abdullah, who we started this hard journey together 2011 during the revolution, also called the Arab Spring, and we were big dreamer. I think we have a lot of evaluation and assessment that we need to shape. I'm here in order to shed light, on a conflict which unfortunately has entered a catastrophic phase. The humanitarian condition in Yemen is, acute. And I think, the next or second session we will discuss a lot of details regarding the difficult humanitarian conditions that Yemen, goes through. But no doubt that thousands have lost their lives and millions were internally displaced. I want today to devote part of my intervention just to, clarifying a major misconception about Yemen's conflict, which in turn will pave the way for better understanding to the cause of the problem and to finding a doable and sustainable solution for the Yemeni problem that need to be addressed. I hear some of whom know Yemen very well, believe that the main cause that fuels the conflict in Yemen is sectarian or regional tension. And this is simply not true. This is not to say that the regional and the sectarian tension in the region didn't exploit the conflict and thus made it more worse. Especially the Iranian intervention, which started not just after the war. I think just we have here Ambassador Palestine, I think in 23rd January 2013. We have huge and very clear objective proof, Jihan 1 and Jihan 2 ship, full with weapons from Iran to Yemen to the Houthis, and a lot of other proofs. So it's not just started after the war started in March. It's already documented long time ago. But and I found myself agreeing with all what the Special Envoy Ismail said about the Yemeni problem, the cause of conflict. The majority of what he stated and said, I found myself in his line. Except this factual issues, which is the Iranian intervention. So what I have just to explain and make it clear that the sectarian and regional factors were not the drive, nor were the cause for the spirit of change. The outcry of change happened in 2011, which was the starting point for the transitional period. Some others believe that the GCC initiatives and its mechanism, and maybe also the other references, are outdated. So something need to be revisited totally. It's not appropriate at all. I do agree with them. For example, from my perspective, personal perspective, GCC wasn't the perfect, agreement, but it works. It was at that time, the perfect thing that promised us peace and stability in Yemen, comparing to what was starting in Syria, for example. So I believe, if we just follow the mechanism of the GCC initiatives, now we will be enjoying with the new parliament, new president, new Yemen. So just if you follow, the well-written structure. But I think we made all the Yemenis elite, political parties, everyone, the international community, two historical mistakes, and I think we have to learn from that. First, that Houthis have, should have been pressured more to become a political party, and not be allowed to benefit from being part of the political process, and at the same time maintain their, militia and military, instruments. Secondly, I think former President Saleh should have been guaranteed amnesty, which was the prize, only with condition that he stops interfering in the political, so letting him in, benefiting from all the network, all the wealth, I think that was a big mistake. For that reason, I think any future plan should take these two mistakes in consideration. Otherwise, we will just repeat the same thing, and we will fix the effects, not the cause of the problem. And regrettably, unfortunately, some are now again promoting the same proposal in this regard. I think, in my opinion, the main cause of the conflict was the persistent, the continued illusion of power. On one hand, we have a dictator, which is Ali Abdullah Saleh, who simply refused to let go, and believed that he can meddle his way back to power. That's what, On the other hand, we have Houthis who believe they too have a shot at being in the control through bypassing the political process by force, and this is what they did. And I think this is also explain, the origin of the alliance between Saleh and Houthis. While, as you know, that there were 6 wars between the government, the Yemeni government at that time, which is ruled by Saleh and Houthis. Having said that, I must clarify also that Houthis are not an ethnicity or minority in that sense who are being targeted by the majority. They are a military who were and still are welcome to participate in the political process like any other parties in Yemen, but as a political party, not as armed militias. Knowing that, I think we can talk about the solution. Houthis, as I said, they were not isolated or marginalized. They were part of the national dialogue, the pre-preparation of the national dialogue, They were part of the constitution. After we signed the peace and partnership agreement, they were part of the government. And they have even the upper say. They were part of everything. But all these efforts ended with that Houthis getting everything without giving anything. When we signed the peace and partnership agreement after they entered Sana'a and occupied the capital, which was the main reason for signing this agreement, is avoiding their intervention and capturing the capital. But they did, and they get everything, and they got everything without giving anything. I still remember. Personally, I participated. I was part of the consultancy team, consultative team in the talks, in the peace talks in Geneva, in PA, and in Kuwait. In PA, they refused even to talk to us. They told us, go to the Riyadh hotels. We are controlling everything. and then that day, when just I appeared in Geneva, they took over my apartment in Sana'a, and they bombed the house of my colleague Abdulaziz Al-Gubari. In BA, the same things. In Kuwait, we signed the final proposal submitted by the special envoy. We as the Yemeni government, although we have crucial comments on the proposal, but we signed the proposal. So again, I think understanding all these facts, I think it's paving the road, for better understanding and finding a sustainable solution. Now, I think Yemen is totally different than the other cases. For example, in Yemen, we have all the sources of, we have the NDC, which is reflected in a draft of constitutions, need to be revisited and go to the referendum. We have the second phase of the GCC initiatives, which need to be followed. And we have the Security Council Resolution 2216. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. What we have to do is just having more push on the right direction. Sending the wrong signals to the Houthis, which usually misread by Houthis and Saleh. And if you just return back to the last few months, forming the Salvation government, the political council, after each high official meetings with Houthis, they misread this attempts from the international community to solve the Yemeni problem, as it is in their way to recognize and legitimize their coup. So I think sending the strong and the right signals from the international community, I think is and based on the three references, I think it will help a lot on achieving or reaching a sustainable peace settlement. We fully supported Ismail Wali Sheikh efforts. We did, and we will continue to do that. We have for sure some comments, and I think we believe the Yemeni conflict, the conflict in Yemen is a Yemeni conflict, need to be discussed and solved within a Yemeni forum. Any ready-made cook will not, I think, work in Yemen, giving the special envoy more space to get the Yemenis again on the table and focusing on the ceasefire issues and stopping the war. I think this is the first step. That was from the beginning our recommendation. You cannot get a very comprehensive deal and put it on the table. This will not work. I think building the capacity of the de-escalation and coordination committee and enable them to start oversees the ceasefire and having solid ceasefire. I think this will be the first step to moving on this path. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm ready to respond to any question. Thank you very much.
Mr. Abdullah?
Thank you very much. Thank you for Idris Institute. Thank you to Ambassador Chamberlain. Thank you to Ambassador Jerry Pressline, dear friend. We worked very closely in Yemen. And thanks to the panel, Ambassador Patterson and my dear friend Ahmed. I will try to focus on some points, because I think we've seen too many things happening in the last 2 years, and I will try. I'm not here to defend or attack any group, because we've had that for the last 2 years, and I think we've done enough of that. So today, what do we do? Where are we heading with Yemen? My main objective is that the citizens who are affected, and I think we've heard some figures from UN envoy that are devastating figures, from 8 million to 19 million. Probably by next week or next month we'll be at the 20 million and up. So I will start of giving some points about the current situation and what is happening, and then I will focus on some thoughts that I think will help move us forward after what we did in Kuwait. I know that many of us here, on top of our mind is Iran. We cannot deny that they have ambition in the region and have played a destabilizing role by supporting non-state armed groups. However, Yemenis do not view Iran as an ally yet, and I would like you to underline yet. While Iran investment in Yemen is minimal, the return has been high, due to us and other regional powers in mishandling the situation. In brief, their goal will not stop. They are patient and will not let go easily. Unlike Saudi Arabia, our history goes a long way in this relationship, and it should improve through confident building moving forward. It's very essential we move in that direction. Yemen will always be either a point of strength or weakness to Saudi and the Gulf. It's about time that we all work together to ensure that Yemen can be a source of stability. After all, this is the only option that we have. And when we come to the US, the new US administration has a critical role to play. Not only in Yemen, but the whole region is waiting to see what you will do in an area facing many challenges. You can start by helping Yemen become a success story in an area that desperately needs that hope. Of course, we have imminent challenges facing us. One is humanitarian, as a result of hunger. If not properly dealt with, and immediately, we will face a catastrophic situation. Yemen does not need your sympathy in a year or a year and a half. We need serious action to be taken today so that we do not lose Yemen to the unknown. The other important point that is essential in Yemen, and I think Mr. Walid al-Sheikh Ismail touched on it, and it's very essential and important, is that the expansion of radical groups, Daesh, AQAP, and others, as a result of fighting and the absence of state, creating a safe haven for them to move freely. And sometimes I get surprised when people try to underestimate the expansion of these radical groups. I think they are spread from Hadramaut all the way to Shabwa, to Al-Bayda, to Marib, to Sana'a, to any city. And I think the more fighting we have and the more deterioration of the economy, you will see an expansion. And especially what is happening in Syria and Iraq, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of a movement going in that direction. These 2 points should be taken into consideration, since we have no time to waste. Yemenis have suffered enough. This conflict has torn the country apart. Even families are split between the different positions in the war. In order to move forward, and we have to be realistic about it, we need direct, constructive talks with all conflicting groups, including Saleh GPC, and I would like to stress Saleh GPC. Sometimes reality has to check in. Since the ambassador we spoke, we were in 2011, had that dream of getting rid and moving and hoping to see a new thing moving on. But reality today is not the same as what was in 2011. Today we have serious things on the ground. We have to deal with what is happening on the ground in order to move forward. And I think for the GPC, it's essential to move forward, and we cannot talk about a GPC without Saleh, and I think the events have shown that. And in previous talks, and this will take us even to what was happening in Oman or in Kuwait, in previous talks, focus was on one side and ignoring the other. We have to accept the situation in order to move forward. We might not like the idea of talking to all sides. However, we have to put everything aside and have constructive talks. We need no spoilers in order to move forward. We cannot have room for spoilers. And the more you isolate them, they will become more and more, and it's easy to be a serious spoiler. The UN Special Envoy needs all support and pressure on all sides to go back into the negotiation with the willingness to compromise. Here I suggest we utilize all efforts needed, we should include Russia, France, and China to the group of 4 plus Oman. Since the 5 members of the UN Security Council have had a united and a positive position from day one in the conflict of Yemen. And I think we have seen the Security Council, the member 5 Security Council, united in most of the position, unlike what you would see the conflict in Syria and what have you. So we have to utilize this, and I think with the Russians in, and with the French and the Chinese, we will have even more space that we can communicate with the different groups. That's in order to move forward. Another issue that I will touch just very briefly, shortly, is the South. We cannot ignore the South. Finally, in the South, the legitimate government has to play a more productive role with all sides, not favoring one over the other, especially the ones that sacrificed most in Aden during liberation. The last thing we need is another cycle of violence based on sectarian division. Now, how can we jumpstart what we left in Kuwait? Where do we go from here? I have some thoughts that probably will put us on the path and might help, and of course, every thought is always appreciated wherever it comes, but I think at this time that these points will help us, direct us to move forward. First of all, number one, we need a temporary ceasefire that will allow humanitarian access to all parts of the country on the following basis. Airstrikes will come to a halt. Cross-border fighting and attacks will stop. No missiles will be fired. Security plan for Sana'a has to be delivered no later than 30 days with the supervision of the UN Special Envoy. Number two, Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is very important, and I think any military action in there is not recommended or advised at all. What should be done in Hudaida port should be kept open and bring in new equipment to operate to full function with UN supervision for all cargo. In exchange, Houthis will pull back from the port to an agreed upon location. After UN inspection of shipments has been done, all these shipments will be handed to business people who know the area well and who are well respected and who can distribute the goods throughout the country. Any interception by the Houthis will put this deal off. 3. Sana'a Airport. Sana'a Airport to resume flights with clear conditions and satisfactory inspection to serve those that need it most. I don't see why Sana'a Airport should be closed anymore, or why it was closed. Because if you were keen not to let some individuals travel, they would never use the local airline. They would use other airlines that we all know. Again, these points, and the fourth point that we have to keep in mind is that, seriously, the interim government that will help in moving forward is that it has to include all groups. And it has to be a government that is willing to work seriously with the GCC. We have to have a strong and a serious partnership with GCC, and I think Yemen needs GCC and vice versa. So it's about time that we work and reality has to kick in to both sides. These points should pave the way to go back to the negotiation table with the intent to reach a political solution that is desperately needed in Yemen. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'll start first with Mr. Ambassador. You heard the UN Special Envoy speak movingly about what he clearly saw as a peaceful solution that was within reach and yet slipped away last year. Do you agree with his assessment that it was within reach? And what responsibility does your government bear for the fact that it didn't happen? And if I might, I'd ask you to address with some specificity some of the practical solutions that were raised here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just I want to clarify, after 90 days of negotiation and 115 days in Kuwait, what Ismail Sheikh submitted, the UN submitted to the, all parties was exactly what Mr. Mohammed Abu Luhum, just addressed and just suggested. And we as a government, we signed it. Although we have a lot of comments. So we agreed that they would withdraw from just 3 zone A areas, which is Sana'a, Ta'az, and Al-Hudaida. And there was, after they, starting with the, I believe that it should be security and political, arrangements. We cannot just talk about the security arrangement without also talking about the political arrangements. But I think we should start with the security arrangements. We, and we have specific requirements, and exactly what Mr. Mohammed Abu Luhum just now, suggesting and proposing. That was, what we agreed on during Kuwait. We agreed to have, ceasefire, to have access to the humanitarian aid to every airway. We agreed that not just in Kuwait, even in BA. In BA, we agreed on what was so-called the building, confident building measures. And one of these measures was, having open access to for the humanitarian aid to everywhere, especially to that. So I think as we are discussing the issues from as we are starting, all what now is proposing on the table, we went through that. During the 2 years of war and before that, because we believe that there is no military solution for the Yemeni conflict. This is our opinion from the beginning, and we did our best. We tried to avoid, getting to a conflict when we signed the peace and partnership agreement, and we give everything without getting anything. So I think the Yemeni government are responsible. We know the price that our people are paying on a daily basis. How they are suffering everywhere. But also we have challenges. We are now positive. Ismail proposed to start and to resume the talks, to reactivate the de-escalation and coordination committee. This is the first step. Our delegation, they are still in Dhahran al-Junub from July 2016 up to now, waiting just for the other party to come and to start discussing the ceasefire. So in terms of ceasefire, we are ready to discuss it. In terms of start or resuming the political talks based on that, but also until we reach that, we cannot just wait while our people is suffering. Just all people talking about Hudaida. Just give you an example. Hudaida, which is one of the main gateway. Al-Hudaida port is just few meters from Al-Hudaida governorate and Tahama, including part of Hajjah and most of the famine, striving is in Hudaida. It's just few meters from the port. 2 years controlled by the Houthis authorities. And everyone is talking about the humanitarian condition in Yemen, while 70% of the international aid coming through this gateway. And then everyone asking us just to wait, not taking any action. We asked the UN, okay, we will not take any further action. Can you not run the board, but having some observers just monitor the process to ensure that Houthis are not, doing smuggling, are not benefiting from the taxation, black market, Hudaida governments are, for the last 2 years suffering and starving, while the board is just few meters from. So I think what we hear all the time in the newspaper and also to be honest, some of the politicians repeated, we went through, and we are open. I served as the Secretary General of the National Dialogue, and before that I was an activist during the revolution, and I was in the same tenet with the Houthis, who later on abducted me, who later on just recently they brought Houthis court, they sentenced me to death with other 6 senior assistants to President Hadi. So I have the honor to be sitting with you while I'm wanted. We went through all this tough time, and we are still ready. I believe we don't want to isolate anyone, including Houthis. Well, up to now, I believe we don't have a sectarian problem in Yemen. We start to hear now Sunni, Shi'i, Zaydi, Shafi'i in Yemen. This does not exist in Yemen. We are praying in the same mosque. We have and it's not between the south and north. I believe on the federal state. So I'm originally from Aden, but I believe that still the proposal made by the National Dialogue, which everyone signed, including the Houthis. I was part of the region committee. I was actually the rapporteur of the they didn't say anything. During the National Dialogue in 10 months, 17 proposals submitted by all the parties. All they proposed federal state, including Houthis, including Saleh group, just 2 groups, Salafis, Al-Rashad, they proposed to have simple state, so they said don't change, and Hirak, they want separation at the beginning. 15 out of 17, they proposed by themselves, federal states, with different formalities, and they signed. Houthis were over-represented in the National Dialogue and in the Constitution's Drafting Committee. People who are close to the Houthis or representing Houthi, more than 7 out of 17 members. And out of the 17 members, 16 signed the draft of constitution, except just one, Abdurrahman al-Mukhtar. So I think we have to know exactly, the illusion, the continued illusion of power, the structure of power, the cause of conflict the cause of the conflict in Yemen, and having better understanding to propose the right. What we're asking for is just push in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. For some, it's just project. For us, it's our life, it's our people. And we, I still have part of my family in Sana'a, my wife's family in Sana'a, and every day I receive call from any place in Yemen. I'm afraid if it is in Aden, something happened, or if it is in Sana'a, something has happened to my wife's, family. So, sorry for taking this, long time, but just this is from my heart, and I think we as Yemeni, we are fed up. We don't war anymore. We want, peace. We want to return back to the peaceful, arrangements, and I believe that we have the basis. But what we want from the international community is pushing in the right direction and not giving any wrong signals to the Houthis that they can, legitimize what they did, and they are most welcome to be part of the future of Yemen as just as a political party as the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ambassador Patterson, we haven't spoken much here about the U.S. backing for the Saudi-led coalition. My newspaper reported the other day that the Trump administration appears to be leaning toward lifting some of the restrictions imposed by the Obama administration on the scope of that support, or at least speeding up some of the decisions to approve things that the Saudis want for that campaign. Do you think that's a good idea? And we've heard from a couple of speakers here today that there's no military solution. Do you agree? And if so, what is the U.S. doing furthering military involvement?
So, do I think that's a good idea? Yes, I think that's a good idea. I think, again, there are hugely complex issues on the ground and on the humanitarian humanitarian side that have to be addressed. But the bottom line for the U.S. is that the Saudis want the U.S. in the region and the Iranians don't. And I think we should sell precision-guided missiles to Saudi Arabia because I think they'll be more accurate in their targeting than they've been to date. I would say that we should help them more with their targeting rather than less. We pulled back, as you know, during the process, and certainly these attacks on civilian targets like the FINRA were a key element of that, but we pulled back our support over time for Saudi Arabia. This had not only it has all kinds of military implications, but what it had would, I think, a profound effect on Saudi confidence and on Saudi relations with the U.S. and they were far more inclined to sort of lash out and not participate in a peace process than they would have been if we had assisted them.
And to the point of whether or not a military solution is actually
No, of course a military solution isn't feasible in Yemen for all the reasons that we've discussed at this table. There has to be a political solution. But what we have now is a very painful and worsening stalemate. And there may be military options that could move that stalemate one direction or the other.
Mr. Abdullah, since a fair amount of discussion so far has been about whether the peace process, whether there actually is still a chance for a peace process, whether it could be resurrected. What do you think is different now? And you mentioned that we have a new U.S. administration and whose views and involvement are being welcomed here. What is different now, do you think, in terms of where the conflict stands than it was at the time that the Kuwait process started to come apart? And what hope do you have for, say, the next 6 to 8 months?
Thank you. First, I do agree with Ambassador Ahmed that no militia in Yemen should have arms. All militias have to submit their arms to the state. We need to have a plan for that. And I think, and I do agree that the Houthis have to be a political party in order to be effective and viable. And of course, the sentence of Ahmed, we all do condemn that. And I don't think sometimes in our part of the world, these sentences are not as bad as they sound. I think we passed through this stage in '94. I think I was one of those sentenced in '94, so it's always nothing to really worry about. And we hope that people will get over these things, especially in Sana'a. What is different? Different is time. Time is always different. People are exhausted. People are tired. People are hungry. People want peace in Yemen. This is what's different. So what was not accepted a year ago, today, people will listen. What was not accepted last month, people today will take. So timing is everything. So we have a new administration and everybody is waiting and anticipating what is this administration is going to do. And everybody is worried. How can we satisfy this administration? So if they want to have a good legacy to start with, I think they haven't been doing that well right now about some of the local issues or they've had some problems here and there. I think they can have a real success in that area. Yemen conflict is not as complex as what is in Syria or in Libya. As I do agree with what's been said, we do not have a religious war in Yemen. We do not have a full-scale civil war in Yemen. We have pockets of fighting that erupt from time to time. And they're still manageable if we focus more. And I believe that time is important, and what was not accepted last year or what was not accepted in Kuwait, I hear from the different groups that yes, we are ready to move forward. And I think we should take the opportunity and move in this direction. I am optimistic. If you ask me where are we heading in the 6-8 months, we are at the crossroad. Will we go in the direction of peace or will we continue the fighting? How do we stay on the course of peace? Again, I go back to the notion that when in war you decide, but when it comes to negotiations, we all have to compromise. Without compromise, we're not going to go anywhere. you cannot tell me that somebody who is controlling military or army and we don't want to talk to him. No, we have to accept each other, because the idea is that we need a transitional period, but a fixed transitional period that will take us to an election where the ballot box will decide. In order to reach that, we have to satisfy and listen to everybody, and I think it is important, and time is more appropriate than it was 6 months ago, more than it was last week, and more than it was yesterday.
Thank you. I think it would be much more interesting to turn to the audience questions than to have any more of mine. So start with you, sir. Wait for the microphone.
Hi, good morning. I'm Tim Lenderking from the Department of State, and I thought it might be interesting to offer a couple of comments more than questions, since what the administration thinks has come up a few times. I think, first of all, we very much associate ourselves with the outline that Sheikh Ismail provided in the first session about the way forward and the contours of the conflict and the various strands that need to be picked up. And I think Dr. Mohammed also spoke about some of those. Ambassador Patterson was absolutely right. I think it answered your question, Ann, about how we see the provision of PGMs. That's just one part of a realignment of the U.S.-Saudi relationship that is underway. It's real, it's happening. A very significant visit by the Deputy Crown Prince 2 weeks ago to Washington. And we're looking to build on that. And I think that's going to provide a lot of the foundation, not only that we see for helping to end the conflict in Yemen, but to broader Middle East efforts. The key point, one key point I think I want to emphasize is that we don't view this conflict as peripheral. This is a very important struggle that's going on in the region, and it's distracting at least Saudi Arabia, but a number of other countries, where we want attention to be focused on some of the more challenging conflicts like Syria. We had a very successful visit by Prime Minister Abadi last week from Iraq. There's some momentum in the Iraq relationship, the Saudi-Iraq relationship. So I think you do see some important alignments beginning to take shape even in this early stage. We're fortunate to have a Secretary of State who knows Yemen. He's lived there. He knows many of the key players. We're extremely well served by an ambassador who's a genuine expert on Yemen. And importantly, even though he doesn't reside in Yemen due to security reasons, he maintains regular contact with all of the parties. That doesn't mean, I think, to say that this is going to be easy. I think even if we may agree that it's the easier or less contorted of the Middle East conflicts, it's going to be very difficult. And we've got to have important alignment from Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, the Brits, our Omani partners also. All of these are, I think, very key entities. So I think the point I want you to, that I would like to leave everybody with, is the sense of urgency that, in fact, this administration is putting on this conflict, and that we're hopeful that our efforts are going to bear fruit over time. Thank you.
Sir?
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tom Lippman. I'm with MEI. In a previous incarnation, I had the job that Ann Heron has now. My question is addressed to Ambassador Mubarak. I think if there's one thing that everyone who's spoken so far has agreed on, is that there's no military solution to this conflict. Over the past 18 months, I've heard high-ranking representatives of the government of Saudi Arabia, including the foreign minister, articulate at least 5 different and not necessarily compatible objectives for the coalition's air campaign, right? None of which, in my opinion, can be achieved from the air. What then is the purpose? What is the objective? What would be the definition of victory for the Saudi-led coalition?
Anne and Ambassador, do you both take a shot at that?
Well, I'm not talking here in behalf of the, our brothers and colleagues in Saudi, but I think, Saudis intervened in Yemen, responding to our request. And why they did do that? They do that because, a coup taking place in the country, and the militias took over the capital of the country, and a peaceful political process was, ongoing, and the militias, in alliance with the special forces of Saleh, they did what you know. So now again, if the militias agreed, as they say, that they are, in accordance with the Security Council resolution, we are ready tomorrow to start the ceasefire and resume the political talks. So from our perspective, from the perspective of our colleagues, we don't have any military objectives. What we have to do is ending up the coup. We have to restore the state. All we agree that the vacuum happened because of the stolen the state. The IQB benefited from that, and it became heaven for them. So I think that the crucial point is that the international community making more pressure in this timing on the militias and on the other parties. I don't want to call them the militias, just the militias, Saleh and the Houthis, to return back to the talks and to start discussing the political solution based on the three references, which is the completing the GCC initiative and its mechanism, the national dialogue outcome, which means we have to refine the draft of constitutions, and starting the process to have general election, and the Security Council, which is based on these two national and regional references. So it's I think if you exactly these questions should be asked the other parties, not us, not our brothers in Saudi Arabia. And just I want to comment and mention that we have no doubt that the previous administration genuinely and also honestly they worked from their heart to and all their attempts was to find a solution in Yemen. Maybe in the end we have some different opinion, but we know for certain that they were doing their best to find and to reach a resolution in Yemen. And so far, what we are receiving from the current new administration, it's very strong and light signals, and I think it will be very helpful on pushing all the parties to sit again on the table. So I think timing, I agree with my colleagues. Pushing in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. And also, I think the three references. It's the only solution. It's the only basis for any solution in Yemen. And after all these sacrifices and all what we paid, we will not accept any more any militias. In Yemen.
Could you take on a little bit of the question of what the Saudis are doing here and whether they have articulated I guess, workable and reasonable military strategy that we actually, the United States, see them pursuing?
Well, no, it's obviously not a very workable strategy, and I think your question is a good one because I think they had multiple reasons that I think evolved over time. And I think the first reason was to push back the territory that the Houthis held and discourage them because, again, I think largely, I still think the Saudis saw this in mostly geopolitical terms about Iranian encroachment on the Arabian Peninsula. So they tried to push back territory. They supported the troops of the legitimate government. They funded tribal elements as well. But they still lacked a ground force largely. And then when the attacks on the border, and this was really what brought down a number of ceasefires, the attacks on the border would accelerate and the Saudis would resume airstrikes, mostly I think in a retaliatory fashion because of course you really can't have your population shelled from another country. So it became a vicious cycle, and it was very expensive for the Saudis and very cheap for the Iranians to do this because they, as I say, I was struck as this whole process went on. You didn't need zillions of dollars of U.S. intelligence to tell you what the Iranians were doing. They were pretty upfront about it, and it was extremely well known in the region. So it became a vicious, and I think you're right, there were multiple reasons that evolved over time. But they would be the first to say, and I don't know if there are any Saudi diplomats here, I don't want to speak to them, but they're desperately eager to get out of this war and pursue a negotiated settlement. They've been totally consistent about that.
Mr. Abdullah, do you agree with that assessment, and how concerned are you from your position about the proxy war aspect of, that we've heard a little bit about here?
Again, I do agree, colleague, that for Saudi Arabia, I think we look at it as a Yemeni. It's very important for all of us that we should have a Saudi that is stable, a Saudi that is working with everybody, a Saudi that has a bigger role, and not to be dragged or continue to be dragged in the war in Yemen. There are bigger missions, bigger goals that will be facing the area, and I look at radical groups are the next wave that are coming. And this is where everybody has to be focusing. And all of us, what is a face saving? A face saving is that we all work. Saudi Arabia has to be a serious partner. It has always been a serious partner with Yemen, and this is one of the best face saving. Yemenis will always look at Saudi Arabia and they will not look anywhere else. So how do we enhance this relationship? How do we improve this relationship? How do we build this confidence again? It's going to take some time, but I think the US and others have to help in bridging this gap, and Yemen has to prove that it is a viable and neighbor that can not be a source of instability to the region. We have to get things moving. An honest, serious partnership has to be done. And sometimes when I hear about what is a face saving is that if you can provide security or safety for Yemenis. I think sometimes when you look at Yemen, a country of 30 million, in a neighborhood where the per capita income in Yemen does not exceed $1,000 a year, and in a neighborhood of 70,000, there has to be something done in order to get things moving in Yemen. Yemen cannot continue to be in this path or in this poverty in that neighborhood, and I think the Saudis are keen about Yemen and they are helping and they have helped, but I think more has to be done from both sides in order to build this confidence back again.
Sure. Microphone down here.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Hassan. I was born in Tehran. And my question is to the Honorable Ambassador. I just heard that we have 30 million people in Yemen. And I heard from you that there was a coup some time ago that started the whole process of destruction in Yemen. How many of these 30 million people do you represent as an ambassador of Yemen? And is there a government somewhere for Yemen that is functioning right now?
Thank you very much. I'm representing the entire Yemen, the whole Yemeni people. The legitimate government of Yemen are controlling now not less than 80% of the Yemeni territories. I think Houthi and Saleh are not recognized by the majority of Yemenis, and also regionally and internationally. So this is my simple answer to your question. Thank you very much.
I think we don't want to be dragged into this kind of discussion. There is a legitimate government that is recognized by everybody. Today we are asking what are the ways to find solutions, not more divisions. And that's when I said timing. Let's not go on who's illegitimate and who's not. The UN resolutions are clear. The international community is clear. But today, it's time for reconciliation. How can we all get together back to the discussion table? And this is where we should all focus.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nabila Al-Tibsi. Yes, you all mentioned the involvement of Yemen. There are other, in the Yemeni conflict, there are other players too. It is a geopolitical conflict. The strategic location of Yemen, it is cursed because of its strategic location. So if our goal here is for humanitarian cause, and we are fed up with the conflict as Yemeni, as Mr. Abraham mentioned, I think we need to understand that each person who is involved in the conflict believes that he has a cause for fighting. Whether we perceive them as a legitimate government or rebel, it doesn't matter. That's how they believe. And when they come to the negotiation table, they need consensus and they need to gain trust. Can we do that?
Mr. Messer?
I agree with you that all the parties, all the Yemenis should, believe that they have to find a solution for the conflict. From my perspective, I think, all of us, we should, represent the Yemeni aspiration and dream. So as I said, that if I think for sure you listen well for my intervention about the, continued, illusion of power. So I think, this is something need to be understood well by all the parties. And I think in the end, I think we have to do some compromises to accept each other, to find a solution, a sustainable solution for the problem.
Sir?
Assalamu alaikum. Ibrahim, my name is Ibrahim Nancy from Yemeni American Coalition.
Not asking me again.
We'll put somebody else on the hot seat, don't worry.
All that question. Hopefully anyone could address it. But I have, this is not the first time that there is a war in Yemen. There is a war, was in 1994. 6 wars for, I think, 2014 and up. And 6 agreements which Houthis actually broke. And we had actually a dialogue, and that dialogue is a pre-war dialogue, let's put it this way. And I think it was, this is just intro to the questions that I'm going to ask. In 2011, we have a revolution which youth actually participated and were part of it. Do you think, is there any role for the youth in the future? 2, do you think Saleh has intention to talk with Yemenis, because he's repeating the refusal of talking to all Yemenis and he's directing his talk outside? 3, do you think having a federal state is the right solution to decentralize this problem that's in Yemen, the government that's actually centralized and having more problems, and do you think that's basically the right solution, which and then a national dialogue was supported from all parties, and as you said, it was a solution. But do you think it's going to play a role where this thing's not going to happen again? Thank you.
Yeah. First, the youth will always have a serious role, and whoever tries to ignore the youth and their participation and involvement will end up in what we are today. So this is a lesson that we have to keep in mind. The second question you asked about Saleh. Saleh is an issue that sometimes we have to seriously look into it. We ignored, I was in Kuwait, I went to Kuwait, in there I was asked to go in there for 10 days, and I ended up staying there 67 days in Kuwait. Spoilers are a big problem, and whenever you want to close the door, you bring them in and see how serious will they participate. And I think it is about time. He is not somebody that is not on the ground. He has big followers, whether we like it or not. He has big supporters, whether we like it or not. And again, one of the things that, and I hope that I'm not going to lose friends today, I'm going to get some of them upset only, is that the legitimate government did not perform well in the last 2 years. It did not communicate well with the people inside. It had an opportunity, and I hope now we can make this communication work on the round table of negotiation. A lot of things were not right done. Again, when you come to the federal state, let's sit on the table and everything is, we'll listen to each other. But at the time when we discussed the federal state, we were all, I think me and Ambassador Ahmad, we were a member of the committee that decided on the federal state. And we thought that was the right thing to do for Yemen. And again, you cannot have a central rule anymore in Yemen. You don't expect somebody from Al-Mahara to walk all the way down to Sana'a or to Aden. No, we have to loosen up things and let's distribute power. That is the best thing that will happen to Yemen. But first of all, we need serious compromise, we need transparency, we need serious willingness to compromise and sit. And more important than anything else is that we have to consider, forgiveness of what is happening. We don't want any score settling because we don't want to keep excluding some people and then we will end up with cycles of violence. And this is where we have to focus on building a new state, we hope. And never give up. Whenever you talk about wars, you don't say this is enough, we will give up. We will give up. No, we will continue until the last day we have, until we reach somewhere. And I'm confident that in the few months we will see things improving.
Mr. Ambassador, please.
Thank you very much. Well, we are talking as Saleh was isolated and not part of the process. And he didn't, participate in the national dialogue. And before that, he had, 50% of the, unity government, 50% during the transitional period. Then, close to 40% during the national dialogue, either his direct parties or the, Ahzab al-Taharuf, coalition parties. So during the three talks in the Geneva, Vienna, Kuwait, he was, well represented. So now I'm really surprised that we have to represent him. He is everywhere, huh? And all the times he's the one who refused everything. He refused the NDC outcomes after his people signed the outcomes. He refused he said no regions, no federal state. We will rule to the end. So I think we have to be realistic and we have to read carefully what is the current situation in Yemen. The Yemeni government, we never say that we don't want to sit with Saleh, but I believe that he doesn't have any chance to be part of the future of Yemen. And if we accepted that, then we will repeat again the same mistakes. GBC is most welcome. I think it's very crucial to have the GBC party, which is Saleh party. So I'm talking about GBC, not about Saleh. So this is my response to your questions regarding Saleh and also Houthis, and also again most of the proposal, most of the plan, everything. Everyone is putting pressure on the government. Everyone is blaming the government. We have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of 40 years we work without any budget. Just recently, when we moved to Aden, and for the first time we start having control the central. It's not control, but we start have access to the money on the central bank. We start to performing and delivering. Everyone is talking about Al-Qaeda. The government. We defeated Al-Qaeda in 2014. We worked closely with the international community, especially with the United States in Siyuf al-Dhahabiyya campaign in Abiyan and Shabwa, and we succeeded, and we get them out. And this campaign stopped after the Houthis aggression on Amran, and then it became again a heaven. Al-Qaeda, they took over Al-Mukalla for 1 year, and we succeeded to get them out. And no one talking is that now Al-Mukalla is ruling by the government. We have difficulties, we have problems. I agree with my colleague Muhammad Abu Al-Hum that we have to improve our performance in many areas, in different no doubt. But also we are, we have limited resources. Now, for the first time, we have the entire government in Aden. And also when we are talking now about the government, what's the government is? is the minister with his office. Most of the, the bureaucracy of the government is still in Sana'a. And we kept dealing with this bureaucracy in Sana'a until the Houthis, formed their salvation, government. Here at the embassy in Sana'a, I kept dealing with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Sana'a until the Houthis decided to we dealt with them as they are representing, the Yemeni government. 1 year and 6 months. 6 months. So I think it's easy, to blame, and we have to listen. And I think we have many things on our plate, and we have, I think, no doubt, to reach the expectation of and aspiration of our people. Regarding the federal state, and I believe, the only solution for Yemen is having, federal state. Yemenis will not accept any more centralization at all. Not the Yemeni in the south, just the Yemeni in the south, but even in Marib, even Taz, even in Damar, even everywhere. I think, so, the proposed 6th region, it was a proposal in the draft of constitution. And when they, kidnapped me in my way to submit the draft of constitution to the president, and that day we were, in our way to launch a public consultation for 6 months discussing this proposal and getting feedback, peacefully feedback from the people, and then again, having another, the national authority of monitoring the national dialogue outcomes to decide, is the draft of constitution in accordance with the NDC outcomes or not. So it's a proposal. In principle, federal state is a solution. But then again, the final touches, the numbers, that's something, if Houthis didn't take this aggression, I think we will be in a situation to discuss all these details. Thank you very much.
I think we have time for one more. I'm standing between you and lunch, so we'll do it quickly. Sir?
Eric Polowski, Washington Institute. A question for Ambassador Patterson, just quickly. Do you think the United States should play a brokering role in the peace process? And if so, what are the factors that impact that role?
This was an issue that certainly some of the people know that was debated rather extensively in the last months of the Obama administration, and I came to the conclusion that yes, they should. Yes, we should then. But yes, the United States and the administration should try and do this, if only because, and as some of the people here know, Secretary Kerry felt strongly that he had to get personally involved to try and move this process off dead center. But yes, I think we should, Eric, because the United States, for the strategic interests we have, for the heft that we have in the international community, needs to be a major player in this. And Secretary Kerry tried to develop a roadmap that didn't prosper, but yes, I think we need to play a very active role in this. There was a lot of discussion that it's a Yemeni process, we need to leave it to the Yemenis. I just don't think that's going to be successful.
Thanks to everyone. Thanks to the panel. You've been generous with your time and insights. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jared.
Let me also thank our panel, Ambassador Patterson, Ambassador Mubarak, Mr. Ali Abdullah Saleh, who came all the way from Cairo to join us, and especially to our moderator, Ann Garrett. We have a 45-minute break now. We have lunch waiting outside. Please go and help yourself to the lunch, and then we'll resume here at 12.